They laughed at him. Not loudly, not openly, but enough. Enough side eyes. Enough whispers. Enough smirks behind champagne glasses. He was just a driver, after all. A black man in a crisp suit, standing beside a luxury vehicle, while wedding guests floated past him like he didn't exist. Or worse, like he was beneath them. What they didn't know, what none of them were prepared for, was that the man they were mocking wasn't hired help. And when he finally walked toward the stage, the room went silent. The wedding was extravagant. A countryside estate, white marble steps, a string quartet playing softly under the open sky. Every detail screamed money. Guests arrived in designer suits and gowns, stepping out of luxury cars, handing keys to valets without a second thought. Then one car pulled up last, a black executive sedan. The driver stepped out calmly. Calvin Moore, tall, composed, impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit. He opened the rear door, waited. No one stepped out. A woman nearby leaned toward her friend. Is he waiting for someone? Another guest chuckled, probably the groom's driver. They always hire extras for these things. Calvin closed the door gently and handed the keys to a valet. I'll park it myself, he said politely. The valet hesitated. Sir, that's not. It's fine, Calvin said calmly. Whispers followed him as he walked toward the venue. Calvin stood near the edge of the reception area. He wasn't holding a tray. He wasn't wearing a badge. But no one asked him anything. They just assumed. A man in a gray suit nudged his wife. Look at this place. Even the drivers dress better than most people. She laughed. Another guest asked sharply, Hey, can you take this to the kitchen? Calvin smiled. I'm actually a guest. The woman blinked, confused. Oh, right? She said, clearly unconvinced. During cocktail hour, he was offered water. Once. Everyone else got champagne. A group of groomsmen stood nearby. Probably making good tips tonight, one of them said. Hope he doesn't scratch any cars. They laughed. Calvin heard every word and said nothing. Calvin watched the room carefully. The bride laughed with her friends. The groom shook hands, accepting praise. Parents beamed with pride. No one noticed Calvin standing alone, except the bride grandmother. She caught his eye once, studied him, then nodded just slightly. Calvin returned the nod. Dinner was announced. Seating cards were checked. Calvin approached the table marked reserved. The usher stopped him. Staff meals are outside, she said. Calvin met her eyes calmly. I believe my seat is here. She frowned, checked the list again. Oh, she said quietly. My mistake. The table went silent as he sat. Someone whispered, this must be some kind of favor. Another muttered, probably connected to security. Calvin folded his napkin. Still silent. The best man stood. Jokes. Laughter. Applause. Then the groom's father. A long speech about legacy. About hard work. About knowing your place. Calvin listened closely. Then the MC announced. And now, a special surprise guest is asked to say a few words. Murmurs rippled through the room. Calvin stood. Chairs scraped. Someone whispered urgently, Why is the driver standing up? Another guest hissed, Is this some kind of mistake? Calvin straightened his jacket and walked toward the stage. Every step felt heavy, not because of fear, because of memory. Years of being overlooked, assumed, dismissed. He reached the stage. The MC leaned in, panicked. Sir, I don't think. Calvin took the microphone gently. It's all right, he said. I was invited. The groom stared. The bride's smile faded. Silence filled the room. Calvin spoke calmly. My name is Calvin Moore. He began. I drove myself here tonight because I prefer not to arrive with an entourage. Whispers exploded. I'm the CEO of Moore Logistics Group. Gasps. The company handling transportation for half the guests here tonight, he continued, and the firm sponsoring this entire event. The groom's father went pale. Calvin looked around the room. I heard the jokes, he said evenly. I felt the assumptions. No anger, no shouting, just truth. I've learned something tonight, Calvin said. People don't see who you are. They see what they expect you to be. The bride's grandmother began clapping. Slowly, others joined. Calvin handed the microphone back. I wish you both a happy marriage, he said to the couple. Truly. Then he turned. But my company will be ending our partnership after tonight. The room froze. The groom's father stumbled forward. Calvin, please, this was all a misunderstanding. Calvin nodded. No, he said. It was very clear. He walked down from the stage. No one laughed now. The next morning, the wedding photos went viral. So did the story. Sponsors pulled out. Contracts were reconsidered. Apologies poured in. Calvin never responded. He didn't need to. They mocked the driver. What they didn't realize was that he had driven himself straight into the truth. Never assume someone's worth by the role you assign them, because sometimes the person you overlook is the one holding the microphone. If you were there, would you have spoken up or stayed silent? Tell me in the comments. And if you want another story where assumptions collapse in public, watch the next video on your screen.